Media, publishing, how consumer data is collected is about to change in a big, big way in this next decade. So before we get into some of these more niche topics, would you guys just go down the line and introduce yourselves?
Larry Cermak, I'm the CEO of The Block. I've been at The Block for the last 5 years. We're an information services company. We're more positioning for institutional audience. I used to be head of research and now I took over as CEO.
My name is Gortjes. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Hello Labs. My background is that about 5 years ago we got involved with crypto, building technology and software on the blockchain. Nowadays we are building and developing television shows about Web3, more specifically killer whales, the Shark Tank of crypto.
I'm Makoto from CoinPost, currently being the CSO at CoinPost. And CoinPost is the biggest crypto media in Japanese market. So we are publishing the local Japanese crypto contents.
What are the problems that we're trying to solve, Larry?
Historically is that it's an ad-driven industry, and for ads to sell for the most, you need to know the most about the user. So this is something that we're dealing with at The Block all the time as well. Like theoretically, the more you know about the user, the more you can target what information they get, what ads they get. Theoretically, the more you can charge. And therefore, there's this like weird Web3, Web2 issue where this model kind of forces you to know as much information as possible about the user, meaning you're trying to track him, track which sites he goes to. We try not to do that, but effectively all media companies do it in some way, which is why we also rely more on the subscription model versus just the ad revenue. But that's currently, in my opinion, the biggest issue is that users don't really have a choice unless you block cookies, unless you use VPN all the time. You're going to be targeted by a lot of the ads, and that's how most media companies currently make most of their money.
We're not in the written media, so we're more in the streaming media, so that's completely different. I do think that there is, a big discussion on, what do you do with the data that you own and what types of data do you give away. One of the biggest and most important things is that data will always be there, and any media production company will use that media to improve their product. And I think a big difference with centralized media is that they take your data and sell it to anybody that's willing to pay for it. And with decentralized media, we're all making sure or trying to make sure or build a business model around the fact that we do not sell your personal data. It's more the metadata that we're using to improve our services and products.
It's difficult really to get to the same numbers you would get when you do normal advertising, which is why you see most of the larger media companies in crypto, even outside of crypto, really only kind of experiment a little bit with subscriptions. But whenever we tried a Web3 kind of subscription model, it's a little bit difficult to actually get people excited to pay for content. And that's especially true in crypto. A lot of people just expect stuff to be free. Like DeFi Llama, one of the best data providers, provides free data. CoinDesk provides free data. So how do we convince people to actually pay for the stuff that we do? That's a little bit more challenging than I think people realize, and it's not super simple to actually solve it with crypto.
Right now, users are in control of big tech. They control the data, they own the data, they monetize the data. How will the paradigm change once users are in control of their own data?
What you see nowadays is basically what I just said, is that centralized organizations take your data, sell it to the biggest bidder, to the highest bidder. And I think that with decentralization in play, you can always make sure that the data that you are sharing is shared in a controlled fashion. So time-wise, how often it can be processed, because I don't think a lot of people understand how often your personal data is being used. It's not only if you can share or have control of the personal data that you're sharing, but it's also about frequency, duration, volume.
Yeah, one thing I'll add to that is kind of the beauty of Web3 versus Web2. In Web2, you're kind of sometimes you have the option to opt out of your data being used, but even that is not often available. In Web3, as long as you follow the right procedures, you use a VPN, you have a good on-chain hygiene, you use multiple wallets, you can pick and choose what you want to share with whoever you're interactive with when it comes to logging in through your wallet, for example. So I think logging through a crypto wallet, whether that be Ethereum, Solana, whatever else, is a really good way for people to actually not give away any information, as long as you follow the best practices. But the only problem with that is that long term, it's not really solved how you actually monetize that. So it's a good method of sign-in. It's not currently a great method for actually getting anything out of it.
Let's explore that a little more. How does a company scale in this Web3 world if they can't collect the data. Because for all intents and purposes, data is the new oil, data is the new gold. Companies don't do it because they necessarily want to, but to get ahead, they have to. So where would the revenue come from in this new Web3 world?
One is a subscription route, which historically is challenging. You can see like all traditional media companies struggle with this as well, and in crypto even more, because like if I tell you give me your credit card number to subscribe to the block, you're probably going to tell me yourself, because most people in crypto are just not willing to share sensitive information like that. And so we've struggled with that, and subscriptions, that's why we target larger firms, because that's the older model and that's easier to monetize. But once you actually like target the small users, I don't think there's like honestly much you can do, because crypto subscriptions haven't worked so far. Maybe someone will figure it out in the future, but it just doesn't work that well. There's a few protocols trying this, and there's like some adoption, but not that much. And then the second model is kind of like you do events and side activities. And I think, in my opinion, the best way is to try to monetize the more valuable products that you have, not just the media side itself.
Just imagine that you're using any type of media that does not require a wallet connect, right? So if you're going onto any media that does not require a wallet connect, that basically means that your data is being shared and used in the Web 2 way, right? So it's very interesting to see how the business models will evolve in the next couple of years, where basically your wallet becomes like an entrance to content, and with that also your opt-in, basically, so your privacy data. And the funny thing is, as soon as that starts happening, you'll see business models evolve, right? So, for example, if we will be streaming, any type of show or whatever, and you log in with your wallet, we can make sure that if you share your data with us, you get like an extra piece of content or something special. So I think we need to start understanding that if we really want to build a connected Web3 space with all the goodies that we're discussing here, we also need to make sure that these products are, starting to evolve and coming along.
By being decentralized, we can choose whether we can disclose the data or who disclose the data with. So the users have more option to choose the Web2 way or Web3 way. And in terms of where the money come from, it's a very good question, and I'm not really sure.
Maybe a quick question for you, Austin. Like, you run one of the largest YouTube channels that focus on crypto itself. There have been like decentralized like streaming protocols and like ways to interact with video content in a crypto way. Has there ever been anything that like you wanted to try out yourself, or is it just like too appealing to use YouTube because it's by far the largest platform? Like, do you see there's ever going to be any sort of switch from these like centralized large platforms like YouTube to distributed content to anything that's more decentralized?
Great question, and like my brother and I think about this all the time. Like, I believe in a decentralized world. I want to get there, but then there's this trade-off that I'm not on YouTube because I love centralization. I'm on YouTube because that's where the people are.
Right.
Yeah. I need discovery. Yeah. And YouTube provides discovery. It's free marketing in that side panel. Hey, suggested video here, go watch it. So, I mean, me personally, even though I love the space, I'm not gonna, we've been offered so many times to, hey, come on, move on this decentralized platform, we'll copy all your videos, it'll be the exact same. I have no interest because that's not where the people are. So I'm ready to move there, I'm waiting to move there, but I think this addresses sort of maybe a bigger question. Is it a problem with the consumers, or is it a problem with the technology?
Yeah, like you said, like no one's gonna go to that platform and like give up on YouTube because that's the biggest way to reach users, and then you get into this issue that happens all the time, which is, well, like everyone's waiting for users, but users are waiting for the content producers to go there, and then you have this like double whammy kind of. So personally, I think it's really difficult to convince someone, for example, to even like quit Twitter and go to like Farcaster, go to Lens, and it's the same with YouTube. There's so many like streaming platforms, but how do you actually get users excited? They're not gonna go there just because they get a free airdrop of like $50, right? Like, you need users to actually constantly check in, which means constant content. And personally, like, I've seen so many like protocols, like the next Twitter, the next YouTube, the next whatever else, the next streaming platforms for music, and they almost always fail because of this precise reason. It's just that they cannot onboard normal people, which then create an audience good enough so it can be monetizable. I don't know if it can be solved. Like, it's probably a multi-year journey, but I think it's really difficult.
Yeah, sure. I fully agree. I'm a little bit older, so I already, experienced how Web2 really came to fruition. And what you just see, it takes a couple of years to really take away a lot of the barriers that are there to entry for a lot of users. So just take the example of, wanting to log into, like, for example, a crypto native media, right? So that takes up so many different hurdles for people to get there. And I'm not talking about us, but I'm talking about our pops and our moms, our brothers and our sisters that just are not natively into the Web3 space. They need to find a wallet, install it, make sure that they connect it, understand what they're doing. They need to buy some ETH or BNB, or it doesn't matter what. So there are a lot of barriers there. So, I think we need to accept that, we're walking towards that ideal future where you really have like blockchain narrative on how do you share and control your data, and also to see how you as a consumer can benefit. But it will take a couple of years for us to get the interaction going. And what you definitely need are, a couple of the bigger players to make that switch.
What's really missing right now in crypto, and a lot of people are trying to solve it, is a good onboarding tool. Is like ideally, people should almost not know they're interacting with crypto unless they're a power user. You should almost like not even know that you're interacting with the wallet. You should not know you're buying some like small amount of Sol tokens or Ethereum tokens. It should really all happen automatically, and for that you need really good onboarding. Things that work, like for example an on-ramp that needs to be plugged into a wallet that actually manages your key in at least somewhat of a decentralized way. And so I think that's where, hopefully in the next bull market, we're going to make a large progress, where everything is like one click and it works almost as good as in the Web2 world. That's, in my opinion, that's one of the more exciting areas in terms of investment as well. Try to make crypto more friendly, try to make it almost like disappear in the background.
That we've seen tried time and time again in crypto is some form of reward or play to earn or attention to earn. Sort of a mercenary mindset instead of a missionary mindset with that, which means people come for the reward, they farm it to death until it runs out, and then all the users leave for the next platform just to collect and sell.
I think like in crypto, one of the core issues that are too tempting is that you can monetize things before the product actually has a really good product market fit. That's one of the core issues, that like you can be a founder and you can make tens of millions of dollars without your product actually working. And that's because exactly what you said, you kind of optimize for the short-term token economic gain where like you can run the price up, 100x or whatever, but then it's inevitable eventually that wheel will stop and eventually will collapse. And we've seen that time and time again, Axie, Infinity, Steppen, whatever tokens like that build systems that focus on like, let's onboard as many users because we're gonna pay them. The issue is that eventually the money runs out, you have to decrease rewards. That's a problem. And I think it almost is tempting for founders to do that. It's tempting for investors to do that as well, because you can make hundreds of millions of dollars in Axie Infinity, similar amounts in Steppen and other projects, and actually, in a bear market, like the product has, 5% of the users that it had before because the price just collapsed. And I personally am really skeptical. I think there needs to be a lot of overhaul to like focus more on long-term token economics. Even Friendtech right now, right? Like one of the most popular platforms in crypto for just interacting socially. And the reason why a lot of people are doing it is not because it's a groundbreaking platform, but because they're collecting points that will eventually convert to an airdrop, right? Like it's like, is that what will happen to users once they actually collect the airdrop? I mean, we've seen it time and time again. They'll probably go down 80% or so, and then they have to actually build a product market fit because the token is no longer going to be enough to make them excited. So that, in my opinion, is like there's a big unsolved thing in crypto, and incentives are almost like guiding you to do the easy way, which is like pump the token to whatever, make a lot of money, and then just leave.
I could probably explain it from the other side now, Larry, because we started out as a project that basically built a very simple game, a game that we called the Mario of crypto, and it was a play to earn. And we very quickly learned that we were either very bad at tokenomics or that the model doesn't work. Basically, we put a couple of solutions in place. So we have a functioning play-to-earn model within the Web3 space with 2 different games. But I would definitely say, it is not the way forward. So we as when we migrated to Hello as a streaming company, as a production company, we basically we looked at the landscape and we saw an awful lot of streaming platforms being built, a watch to earn, no matter what you name it, with a lot of investment behind it as well, I must say. And if I look at the landscape now, almost none of them are still building or actually alive because of the aspects that Larry just explained. So for us, we're definitely we are taking the route where we basically implement a Web2 model, so to say. It's a little bit maybe a dirty word, but our token is basically the exporter to our ecosystem. You can watch the content, you pay a couple of tokens, we have decent pricing models, but it gives you an edge. So we definitely appeal to the Web3 mantra where you want to be first, you want to understand stuff better, you want to be able to share the information with your friends, make beneficial stories around anything that you do together in the Web3 space and onboard more people. But we definitely have a pay-to-watch model.
Which, by the way, puts the user in control.
Yeah, that's it. And then there must be a trade-off, because if you do a watch-to-earn model, somewhere the company needs to make some money to actually build these high-value productions. And I also think that these watch-to-earn models and maybe the play-to-earn models also have created an ecosystem, in some cases at least, where the quality of the product in itself can't be as good it could have been because of the simple fact that companies are funding most of these rewards.
Makoto, you're CSO of CoinPost, major news crypto site. Would you ever implement an attention-to-earn economy?
I think the problem in the Web3 world is like we are always talking about like the X2 or something relating the incentives by tokens, because there are so many products not using the blockchain and then not incentivize the users by token or financial incentives, but it's while successful and sustainable. For example, there's the one platform operated by Yahoo Japan. The user can post a question and the other users can answer the question, and the best answer will be rewarded by the Yahoo point. But the Yahoo point is cannot be used to anywhere else, so they cannot buy anything by that point, and they cannot do anything by that point. But they are still willing to answer that question, because for the users, they are put more importance on like needs for uploadable, like they want to be recognized as like expert in some areas. So the platform is incentivizing the users not using the token or financial incentives. So I think the very like fundamental problem, but we can think about how we can motivate or how we can create a community not using the financial incentives.
How do you see AI affecting either positively or negatively media going forward?
I think it's one of the more transformative technologies that we've seen recently, just in terms of like how much it can save you in terms of time and resources. Like at the block, we have about 80 people. For example, if we were summarizing all articles manually, like you're paying 1 or 2 people to do that full time for all the articles, podcasts, everything. So now we can do AI for that. We can translate content into different languages with like pretty high success rates, just by paying for the API itself, instead of like hiring multiple people in each country to translate all the content. We're using it more for whatever internally to like help save us time. And I think like that in itself, it just saves us money. It means like we don't have to burn as much as we normally would, and that's huge. And so I think in terms of media, is it good enough to actually write articles for you? Like, not really. You actually still need people to at least like check the stuff.
Not yet.
Not yet, at least, but I think it will be. Like, it's fairly close. We can't do that yet, but for example, we can do it for like learn content. If you are like, what's the history of Bitcoin? Like, AI will do a really good job, and you don't need to actually spend one day of a journalist to write that content. You can just have them edit it, and that's a huge time saver. And I think eventually, like personally, I don't think really there's going to be a lot of like journalism jobs in like 10 years. I just don't see how. It's only going to be those that are like doing investigative stuff, doing something that cannot actually be automated. But if you have a breaking news, piece of information, actually, it's much. If it's as good as your normal person, it's much better to use AI because it's faster. It's like you're dealing with seconds, and that's what in the block, CoinDesk, Cointelegraph, like we deal with this all the time. It's like we need speed. And that's one of the biggest advantages of using automated AI stuff, is that the latency is like less than 1 second. And so you don't need a person, and actually it's better in a lot of ways. We're not there yet, but eventually it's going to be something that it will transfer, written media massively.
Makoto, let me go to you, and let's say on the news publishers, the benefit of AI is speed, yet the downside is much easier fake news, especially with pictures, videos. I personally think we'll get to a point where right now we're asking the question, we kind of assume the picture's real, and then we ask, well, maybe this is AI, maybe this is fake. I think we're going to get to a future where we just assume it's fake. We assume it's AI, and then we have to ask, is it real?
It can reduce more human power by using AI in terms of when we create an article or doing the research or doing the fact check or doing the even spelling check. Or we can get more wider information from all over the world because we are based in Asia and we specifically based in Japan. So most of the information around us is Japanese. But so we all lack of Western countries information. Okay, let's say what is happening in the United States or what is happening in the Arabic countries. And it's really hard to get wider information because of the language barriers. But if we are, by using the AIs or use AI translation, we can get more information and we can get wider information by using less human power. And that's the very positive use case of the AI in the media area. And if blockchain can verify the the fake news or a fake the picture is, I think somehow we can.
Well, I think you're right about one thing, which is that eventually there's going to be a huge problem with recognizing real and fake content. And I think right now it's still not good enough. Where generally once you zoom in a little bit, you can tell, okay, this is probably fake. But within probably 5 years or something, it's going to be so good that it's going to be impossible to tell. And I think you're saying the right thing, that there will need to be a way to somehow tell. I don't know if that exists on the blockchain. It could also be a centralized way somehow, but there will need to be a way where you somehow classify images as real and therefore it timestamps. It's possible blockchain will be used for that. I don't think it's the solution short term. Long term, there needs to be a system that does that because it's going to be problematic, right? You can have the US president saying things that will start a war if you can't check quickly. And there's going to have to be a way, some time-stamped way to prove that the picture has been taken, picture is true, and it has not been edited. And I think it's a big unsolved problem right now that we're going to have to solve because it's quickly, it happened to me a few times already. I was holy shit, that's actually real, that's actually fake. That looks absolutely real, and that's only going to be more common.
I have a little bit a black and white solution opinion on it. So for me, AI is a tool, basically. That's it. So just like we use Slack, we use Word, we use Telegram, it doesn't matter. It's basically a tool to become more effective and make stuff happen faster. And Larry and I were discussing this last night. Basically journalism is journalism, and the task of journalists is basically to bring the right information and accredited information. And any AI like ChatGPT or whatever, they can write excellent stories, cover stories, informational articles and whatever, but there are still the journalists there to actually fact check it. It doesn't matter where the information comes from. On our end, it's a lot more around creativity. So for us, we do use AI, we do use some stuff, but it's really hard to replace creativity with an AI or a written piece of content. But yeah, I definitely see it evolving in the future, and I wouldn't be surprised that in 10 years we're watching a series on Netflix or Amazon or our platform that is completely built by AI. I can imagine.
For me, I see some sort of future where, well, you can go on the blockchain and maybe it'll be all sides of the story, but you can verify with that artist or with that whoever, does this come from the artist or the creator I actually want to support?
It's awesome. Everything that we're trying to do as a media company or as a marketeer is personalize stuff, make stuff that people actually like to watch, read, listen to, whatever. And if the technology is there where you can watch an episode that is really bespoke for you, the AI knows it, you love it. It's a marketeer's dream. But for anybody that's looking at it from the sidelines, it's pretty scary. It's pretty scary because you never know what is real, because it's then, emotions take over. And that's the trigger that we're all looking for. We're looking for that emotional trigger for you to connect to the content that you're broadcasting or sending or, streaming. So, I love the idea from a technology perspective. I love the idea from a marketeer's perspective. But it's, as a person, it's pretty scary.
Makoto, thoughts? I saw you smiling.
Yeah, as say as we are doing the crypto media, AI is kind of the scary in our business as well, because we are like, okay, let's say Doublelog or CoinPost, we are same doing the Web2 media, kind of like that. We are hiring the editorial team and let them write an article. So once the AI mature, it can take over most of the like editorial team work, and it might be. Okay, let's say we have 20 people in our team, and we are making one media, but with utilizing the AI, one person or one even like two or three very small team can beat us in the future, might be. Yeah, so AI can be the very, how can I say that, very positive to us, of course, but if we are not utilize it, we can be beat by a very like the other startups or other upcoming medias. Yeah.
Gentlemen, final question. Let's get off AI entirely and just bring it back to Web3, crypto, and media. Generally speaking, let's end with a prediction. In this next decade, how do you see the space evolving, either for you or generally speaking? Maybe Larry.
Really hard question. I think what we're going to see more of is logins with wallets, for sure. I think it's a very natural use case where you're not volunteering really any information. You're not giving any personal information. I think it's still in super early stages of adoption. Even though like ENS, for example, saw a big boom, but in general, like Wallet Connect and just in general, like click quickly and connect with your wallet instead of your like Facebook or Gmail account, I think it's going to be more popular because it's a very natural way to not give away data, and users generally want that. I think there are going to be new business models pop up in media that will hopefully lead to a better balance of like not just focusing on traffic, just focusing a little bit more on quality as well. I don't know how it looks like though. I wish we did, because we would do it already. But I think there's going to be some creativity, and crypto is one of the technologies that potentially can enable something like that to function and to eventually like fix the incentives that right now exist in the space.
Sander, 10-year outlook?
A decade is a long time.
Yeah.
But I will explain what I think that's going to happen. So I think that one of the biggest takeaways for me would be that we will see an integrated flow of information being broadcasted to a single person. So it's not only about the media that you're reading, it's not about the stuff that you're listening, or maybe the television shows or the streaming media that you're watching and viewing. It is also about how the blockchain will enable us to make sure that we're targeting the right person with the right messaging, making sure that we, store the right type of information. We allow people to enable their own profiles to be receptive to this information if they're interested in it. And we can improve the whole product line of the media that we're actually producing, and then also the aftermath. So I think it's much more like an immersive experience, both from the consumer as the production media marketing technology company. So yeah.
Makoto, your take?
Yeah, like a decade is really long, and we are now like figuring out what's going to happen in a decade by ourselves. But as we talk today, the privacy and Web2 can have more better UI and UX, and then Web3 can better privacy, and AI can have negative way and the positive way. So I think that in any technologies, the balance between the the utility and positive point and the negative point is very important. So we can figure out what's the best balance.
But that being said, let's give it up for our awesome panelists.